Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Point Podcast. Everybody had a great weekend. Some beautiful weather. I got to see some good people. So I hope you guys had a great weekend. I had a good weekend. Saw some people, like I said. Got to watch some sports as always. And I apologize for no show Friday, but it's gonna be a full week of shows this week. I promise. Lots to get into. The world of sports is slowing down, but also speeding up. If that makes any sense, because we have the Stanley Cup Final beginning on Wednesday. The NBA is over this week. We also have the NBA draft next week. We also have the U.S. Open golf this week. Wimbledon starts in 2 weeks. In tennis, it's constantly moving. UFC was a great pay-per-view this past weekend. We'll touch on that today. But UFC Fight Week and the Hall of Fame is the first weekend in July, right next to Canada, July 2nd. That's the next pay-per-view. That's in 2 weeks. So lots happening in the world of sports, and we're going to touch on it all. Lots of interesting topics to get into as we get closer, and also the Memorial Cup. That starts a week today, actually, in St. John of all places, and it's pretty something I'm really thinking about. And you try to be reflective during the pandemic, and you try to, when we going through all that and getting out of it now, and COVID's not even a discussion anymore. So it's a good thing. It's nice to see in New Brunswick, obviously born and raised here. I love New Brunswick. Don't want to live here forever, but it's definitely something that I'll cherish and look back on fondly forever. To think in 2022, we are going to be hosting in New Brunswick a Memorial Cup and a World Junior within 4 months of each other. That's pretty crazy to think about. That I never thought that would have happened 10 years ago. But now that we're at this point, we're coming out of a 2 years of hell, and we got two of the huge events in hockey when it comes to junior. I think it's great. I think it's awesome for everybody involved, and kudos to get these done. But the fact that we're going to have both of them in New Brunswick is a major coup for the province, and I think it's going to do a lot when it comes to driving money, getting people down here, excitement to see what Moncton, Halifax, even St. John, a city I'm not that fondly of, has to bring when it comes to the love of hockey, the passion, the fan base. I think that's a great thing. We've seen it in golf this weekend at the Canadian Open. When you have a chance to show the spot, when you have the spotlight, when you have a chance to show people what you're really made of, what kind of fandom you have, you need to do it. And I think over the next 4 or 5 months here in New Brunswick, it's a big opportunity for us as a province to really show that we can host big events like this. This doesn't have to be, it happens once every 20 years. We can host women under 18s. We can host Memorial Cups. Fan base in New Brunswick are just as loud as people in Quebec, just as loud as people in Ontario, no matter, wherever you want to go. And that's just something I've been thinking about lately. That's pretty cool. We're going to have two huge events so close together. So very much looking forward to both of those. On the home front this week, Seamus will join tomorrow. Still working on a few guests for later in the week, so I'll keep you informed. Still a little housekeeping and a personal note here. Still working through the hair. If you listen and you're watching the video, you can see it's raining today, so the hair is a bit of a mess. I don't want to cut it, but it is also it's going everywhere, and I got to find a different strategy to do with the hair. And if I keep the long hair, I like to keep the beard short. So still trying to figure that out. But I like the hair, but I'm not sure if the way it is right now, it's a handful. So we'll see what happens. That's just a personal. That's less serious and what we'll get into later. But as you can see, it's a bit much. If you're watching on video, you can see if you have any tips with what I can do with my hair, because I don't want to cut it. But it looks a little askew today. Again, the rain doesn't help. But if you have any tips on what I can do to keep my hair looking nice, presentable, I'll take them. But again, if I hear that if we'll cut it, Well, that's not constructive. That's not helpful. I don't want to hear that. But any other tips that would help me, I'd appreciate keeping it this length. It's getting long in the back, I was told today by my mother, who of course hates my long hair. So I don't exactly take her opinion on that serious. But maybe I should, because I have to keep her happy. Nevertheless, let's get into sports, because that's what you're here for, not to hear about my hair and my crappy personal life. But after this weekend, we now have 2 teams remaining in the National Hockey League. A team that has been on the rise for years in the Colorado Avalanche. A team built by a former champion there, Joe Sakic. A team that drafted extremely well with Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and then towards the tail end of it, you land on a Cale Makar and even scoop up a Bowen Byram for fun. A team that you always viewed as a team that should get to a Stanley Cup Final. That always lacked something, goaltending, that lacked a strong defense core, injuries at the wrong time, you name it. But now they've gone through the playoffs in relative easy fashion with a pair of sweeps and a 6-game battle with the St. Louis Blues, who gave them everything they could handle. But Colorado has had few injuries, Nazem Kadri notwithstanding, but a lot of time off. They played good hockey, and we've seen Cale Makar, if we didn't know it already, skyrocket to superstardom. And on the other side of the coin, we have a team that's going for immortality. A team that, in my opinion, if the Tampa Bay Lightning win the Stanley Cup championship this year, I think you can make an easy case, and I'll make the case that they are the greatest team to ever be assembled. The New York Islanders won 4 straight Stanley Cups. I realize that. 4 is more than 3. I know that. I know math a little bit. But the Islanders of the 80s with Clark Gillies and Mike Bossy and the great players, there was no salary cap. Free agency wasn't a thing. You were drafted by a team, you signed with the team, and you were there for the rest of your career or until the team said they didn't want you anymore. There was no threat of losing the players that helped you win the first 2, second, third, upteenth championship. We've seen the Chicago Blackhawks. They had to offload Dustin Byfuglien, Dave Bolland, Brian Bickle. Year after year, they lost pieces, and they'd lose the next season, then find a way to bring it back the next year after signing Marian Hossa, after making additions to the roster. But this Tampa team hasn't had years off between it. They've won 2 straight cups and now have an opportunity to win a 3rd one in a row. Losing Yanni Gourde, losing Barclay Goodrow, losing Blake Coleman. You go through their team, they lost piece by piece, but they've still found a way to be competitive. They lost Braden Point in round 1, who was the most clutch goal scorer the last 2 seasons in the playoffs, and they're back in the Stanley Cup Final. Old school hockey fans, I think, will hate this take. And I might be new school, but I respect the old school way. I'm not a new school thinker. I'm not a TikTok guy. I'm not social media. I don't love that shit. I still have VHS tapes. I've watched Rock'em Sock'em. I know what the old school game was like. But in the salary cap era, to win 3 Stanley Cups in a row, it just hits different. It's a different set of rules. It's a different set of regulations that the New York Islanders of the 80s didn't have to face, that the Oilers of the 80s didn't have to face. These dynasties didn't have to worry about it. Didn't have to worry about what was around the corner, who had to leave the team for you to stay competitive. Your team stayed the same. In Tampa, they've had to make moves. They've had to transition. And yet they remain competitive. They remain the class of the NHL. Heading into this series, Colorado is the favorite. I thought they would be. They're going to have over a week off. They're playing great hockey. Is there reason to doubt Colorado? I'd say watching the playoffs so far, no. You can't make a great case that Colorado is going to lose the Stanley Cup Final. I'm not going to make my pick till later in the week. Game 1 is Wednesday. But I'll just say this from the get-go. It's not going to be a cakewalk. It's not going to be an easy series for either team. Colorado might be the favorite. But just because there's some bets where you go, yeah, Colorado's playing Nashville. If I'm on FanDuel making a bet, I'm not betting on Nashville. It's a stupid bet. It's a loser's race. Tampa, Colorado, you want to put some money on the underdog on plus money? It's not a stupid bet at all. I got caught in the first round betting against Tampa Bay Lightning, against Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto is extremely close to beating them, but extremely close doesn't count for anything, and Tampa won. Beginning of the season, I thought the Florida Panthers would win the Stanley Cup. I was wrong. Tampa beat them. And there was even a point in this series where I thought the New York Rangers had Tampa beat. Game 3, you're up 2-0, and you throw it away. You had it in your grasp, and you let it slip away. Sometimes it's that close. The Rangers could be in a Stanley Cup final, but you just miss out on that opportunity. You give up a goal at this inopportune time. A team finds it, they set their game plan in motion, and it's over. There's no way Tampa was going to lose Saturday night. They were the better team from the drop of the puck. They had more energy, they had more life, and they didn't allow anything. Tampa is such a perplexing and such a fascinating case study because they can play up and down hockey. They can play go up the wing with you. They can quick transition in the neutral zone, 3-on-2s, odd man rushes. If you want to play that game, they will. They'll play the game with you because they have the firepower to do it. But what's also so amazing about this team is they can be the 95 Devils, where they just eliminate the neutral zone. There's no space, there's no ice, and you muck it up. And it's a 2-1 hockey game, and they're comfortable that they're going to win that game. I don't know if I've seen a team like that. We've seen the 95 Devils, but they certainly weren't an offensive team. We've seen teams with offensive crazy firepower in past years. I'm thinking of the Capitals in 2018. But they weren't a good defensive team. These teams normally have one or the other. Yes, they're decent defensively, but Tampa's on a whole other level. They just play. New York was frustrated in this series because they couldn't do anything. Zibanejad and Kreider were on the top of the world. And yet, at the end of the series, they had no space, they had no time, and they became virtually irrelevant. That doesn't change that Mika Zibanejad had a fantastic postseason. And with that loss Saturday, it does not change the fact that the New York Rangers had a really good season. That's something I think media members, myself here podcasting as the new media, if you will, we have to look at it and accept that this was a positive season. The New York Rangers, who sent out a letter to their fans 4 years ago, they are openly tanking. We're gonna be a bad hockey team for many years to come. We're trading away Ryan McDonough. We're waiting for Henrik Lundqvist's contract to run up. We're trading Dan Boyle, Dan Girardi. Sorry, we're making a bunch of changes. We're not going to be any good. While they were in a Stanley Cup final, while they got to conference finals, they got close. But less than 4 years later, after that, you're in a Stanley Cup final. You have a generational talent on the back end. You have a Vezina Trophy winner, 23-year-old goaltender in net. And you traded Derek Brassard for a number one center. That's in the span of 4 years. Zibanejad for Brassard, pretty good deal. Shesterkin replacing Henrik Lundqvist, who had first replaced Mike Richter. Pretty good transition. And then you have Adam Fox to step in for Ryan McDonough. What team is going to have a better outcome than that? What team in a 4-year span can say that they did that? There are teams that stink that go to competitive, that go to championship level. That happens all the time. But it's extremely rare, where you go from competitive, Stanley Cup Final, you're always in the playoffs, to stink briefly, but quickly back to on the cusp of greatness. And the New York Rangers pulled this off. Chris Drury, Gerard Gallant, and this organization deserves a ton of credit. Just for put this into perspective. 2017, Ottawa was in a conference final. Same position as New York. Okay, they went to game 7, double overtime. It's the same thing. You lose, I don't care what game it is. You lost in the conference final, it's the same fucking thing. They haven't been back to the playoffs. Haven't sniffed it. Haven't gotten close. San Jose, since making their cup final, they've won one round. Nashville, one round. Not a whole lot of success with these teams. Now, will New York be able to keep it up? We'll see. I have a lot of faith in this team. New York should be the team to dethrone the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay Lightning are going to be a good team again next season. That's not going away. Sure, they'll be tired. They're tired this year. They're still playing well. The Rangers with Zibanejad, with Kreider, with Adam Fox and Lindgren, who only get better, and Shesterkin, and the move I think they need to make this offseason. A move that I said at the trade deadline they should try to do. And this player has to agree to come. But I think he would to go to the Big Apple. And that's trade for Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane is such a difference maker. He's a guy that if Chicago ate a little bit of his salary, they don't have to. He's making 10.5. He's still a $10.5 million player. Still a superstar. But if they ate some of it, they might get a better haul. Now, if I'm Chicago, I'll do it. But I want Keandre Miller. That'd be tough for me to do because I think Keandre Miller had a fantastic postseason, but I want him. Because I'm trading away Patrick Kane. I want a good haul for him. But that's something I'd look into. Another scoring option, because something that became so clear in this postseason, and I hate to harp on him, but I have to. That's what I do here. When you stink, I have to talk about it. Coming into this postseason, around the NHL, universally known, Artemi Panarin is the superstar of the New York Rangers. Such a dynamic player. One of the best passers in the world. He's phenomenal. Just a great player. Okay. It's good. Good player. He's a good passer. But then we get to when it really counts. When the game is physical and there's no room. And to win, you have to get to the middle of the ice. Where did Stamkos score his goal? Where'd the game winner go? Was that from 85 feet out? Oh, no, he got to the net. Artemi Panarin is one of the biggest reasons why the New York Rangers lost this series. Because he didn't have any heart. He didn't have any guts to not leave the perimeter. Mr. Perimeter stayed out there. And he relied on other teammates who were banged up, I'm going to add. Way more banged up than him because it's impossible to be hurt when you don't take a check and you don't get to the middle of the ice. He stayed out there and let his teammates do work that he refused to do. There's something I learned very early on from my grandfather. He never asked an employee to do a job that he had never done himself. Well, if you're the best player of a team, you have to dig in. You have to get in the middle of the ice so that others will follow. New York, their leadership core, which captain beginning of the season was almost Panarin, if you can believe it, over Chris Kreider, which is fucking nuts. But he doesn't work. He doesn't get to the middle of the ice. So it's almost, I don't even know how to phrase this. The fact that they are working hard, getting to the middle of the ice, and they're defying their leadership is crazy to think about. Because any your boss, you're on a sports team, whatever. The leader sets the tone. If you're in an environment at work, you've worked a bunch of different jobs. If you have a boss that's lazy, that doesn't take his job serious, then how are you going to act at work? You don't own the company. You're just collecting a check. If it's a joke to him, then it might as well be a joke to you because that's the environment he's setting. The boss sets the tone. The superstar player sets the tone. That's Panarin. That's what I've been told forever. I've never loved Artemi Panarin. I never get the hype. Playing on the perimeter might work in the regular season because nobody throws a check in the regular season anymore. But when you get to the playoffs, when there's no ice, and it's about getting to the middle of the ice because that's where the game is won, he's irrelevant. He's fucking useless. New York was so close to winning, despite him, because he did nothing this whole series. That tells you how good of a team this is. He has value. And this might be, labeled as an overreaction. I don't think it's an overreaction at all. If you need to get Patrick Kane, trade Panarin. I would take a year of Patrick Kane over what I know I'm going to get from Artemi Panarin because I'm not going to get effort. I would absolutely, because I've seen Patrick Kane do it. I've never seen Artemi Panarin. And this isn't just about Russian players. Kucherov works. He'll go in a corner. He'll butt end you. Panarin will go, he'll hold up. Artemi Panarin is a lot like Bill Nylander. The effort is just not there. It's incredibly frustrating. If I'm Gerard Gallant, I would find it would be so frustrating because he's your best player and he was a garbage player. He was one of the worst in this series. If I had to rank forwards, just off the top of my head, Zibanejad was better. Kreider was better. Lafreniere was better. Hedl was better. Barclay Goodrow was better. At least he blocked a shot. At least he cared. I could go through the list. Kevin Rooney might have been better, and he missed 2 games. That tells you how bad Artemi Panarin was. But the Rangers are so close. They should feel good about this season. The narrative that you get to a conference final and the season was a failure, that's stupid. Edmonton and New York should feel good. New York should feel better because they got a better team moving forward to get back here. My personal opinion. But it's ridiculous. What's happening here? The fact that Artemi Panarin gave you that effort. Like Ryan Lindgren is playing basically with half a body. Banged up the whole playoffs, but he finds a way to get back. Barclay Goodrow's, I believe he has a broken hand, if not more injuries. He's played a ton of hockey too. And Artemi Panarin can't even give a shit. Can't even give a shit. A spinorama 85 feet from the net, and then you make a pass cross ice where the other guy is 85 feet from the net, and he shoots a puck, and Vasilevsky hits it with his blocker to the corner. That's not a good play. Okay, the crowd goes, ooh. Who did it create anything? Created stir in Madison Square? Good. Madison Square is just completely deaf now because nobody's in there because the Rangers are out. But this offseason, the Rangers try to make that move. Give Kreider the captaincy. It's about damn. He's been there forever. I don't know why he doesn't have it now. But for the Ning, one line really carried them. I credit a lot of the other lines, like Cirelli. I thought had a great series just defensively. Him and Hagel and Killorn were such a good line against Zibanejad. They neutralized them. They eliminated ice. They deserve a ton of credit for the job they did in this series. They were fantastic. But Steven Stamkos was a straight-out killer in this series. He blocked shots. He scored big goals. He was tenacious on pucks. He fought Alexis Lafreniere at the end of Game 5. He was a man possessed. And I thought he was decent last year in the playoffs. He wasn't great. A year removed from not playing in the playoffs, but he played good in last year's postseason. But they're not winning this series without him. Stamkos and Andre Palat were the 2 best forwards in this series. Kucherov had a good game 3 and game 4. But in totality, I thought Stamkos and Palat were the two best forwards. That was a line, but I thought those two were fantastic. But Stamkos scores the opener Saturday night. Then he takes a penalty, which I don't even think it was a penalty. That was a bogus call. And the refs were bad on Saturday night because Lafreniere nailed Hedman with an elbow right to the jaw, right to the head. That was a 5 in a game, missed call. But right after Stamkos takes a penalty, Frank Vetrano scores on the power play. Who gets a game-winning goal about 6 seconds later? Stamkos. It was a different sort. He skated so well. He just looks so confident. He looks back to what he used to be. And that's such a difference maker for Tampa because when he's at the top of his game, he's a very difficult matchup. And what's going to make things even more complicated for a team like the Colorado Avalanche as we head to the Stanley Cup Final is Braden Point was a full participant in practice today. First time he's participated in team drills since getting injured against Toronto. He skated by himself. He's done laps, but he's never participated in a practice. So to me, unless there's a big setback over the next 48 hours, Braden Point's going to be playing game 1. How healthy he is, that's another question. But he's going to be in the line. So you're going to have Point, Stamkos, Cirelli, and Nick Paul. Nick Paul will become that fourth, likely. They could even put him on the wing of that third line. He can take draws. But it's a dangerous. They have a lot of different options with their center position. It's going to be hard to match up with this team because they have a lot of guys that are really good defensively, and now they get another goal scorer back in the lineup. And it creates more fire because, like I said, one line really won it in the conference final. That was the Stamkos Palat Kucherov line because Hagel scored an empty net goal. Sergachev had a big game 5 with 2 points, but Cirelli didn't score a goal. Killorn hasn't scored a goal in the playoffs. You can believe it, and they're in a Stanley Cup final. But he's playing well in other areas, and their defense has been good. Not like Colorado's where they have over 60 points from their back end. But just looking at we're going to dive into this matchup tomorrow and Wednesday as well because game 1 is Wednesday, game 2 Saturday. It's the only time between games where there is a 3-day break, if you will. So it goes Wednesday, Saturday, Monday, Wednesday. And this is a mistake by the league. I don't know if it's because the season has to be done by a certain time. But game 5, if necessary, which it will be, is a week from Friday. That's a mistake to put a Stanley Cup Finals game on a Friday. Nobody watches hockey on Friday. It's the worst. That's why there's so few games on Friday nights. It's just not a big hockey. Saturday, I get it. There's ratings, but the NBA is over. I don't understand why the game would be on a Friday. I believe, if I remember this correctly, that would be the NBA draft. It might be on a Thursday this year. They might have moved it to Thursday just to avoid the NHL game. But they should have that game on a Saturday. Saturday night primetime in the U.S. and in Canada. I can't see it being better than Friday. I can't see Friday being better. That's just a scheduling issue I saw that if I'm running a network, I don't want my event on a Friday. I don't want a finals game on a Friday night. The NBA this week is Monday, Thursday, Sunday. It's better than Friday. They had Wednesday, Friday last week. I think it's a mistake too. It should have been Saturday. They had all those times between games normally. They didn't this time. Anyway, we'll get to the NBA in a bit, but that's just a scheduling issue. But looking at this series as we get closer to it. Initially, you look at goaltending because that's where everything starts and finishes. Tampa obviously has the edge in net because I don't care if you put the skills of Darcy Kemper and Pavel Francouz together, Vasilevsky's still better than them. Vasilevsky, yeah, you could put all their skills, you could give 4 legs to Darcy Kemper. Vasilevsky's still better than him. Vasilevsky is the best goaltender in the world, and in my opinion, he's the second best hockey player in the world. So, edge Tampa there. Their back end. It's interesting because Cale Makar is a flat-out superstar. Byram's a great player. I love Devon Taves. Eric Johnson's played well, but I still give the edge on the defense to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Victor Hedman is still the best defenseman in the world as of right now. Maybe this series we'll see a changing of the guard. Mikhail Sergachev is no slouch. Chernak is just a flat-out beast. Bogosian's playing with a ton of confidence, making some big plays. This team is, and of course, Ryan McDonough, who might be the most underappreciated player on the Tampa Bay Lightning roster for how good he is, but he's surrounded with such great talent that you forget about him. So I give an edge to Tampa on the back end. So that's goaltending and defense. I give an edge to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And up front, I'll give it to Colorado. Even without Nazem Kadri, you look around, you have Rantanen, McKinnon, Landeskog, Arturi Lehkonen, who scores big goals, JT Compher, Newhook is extremely dynamic, and Point coming back would be an X factor there. But I still get, as of right now, it might change. I'll look this again before Wednesday. But as of right now, I give the edge to the Colorado Avalanche just because they have such elite scores. Rantanen's right up there in the Rocket Richard before. McKinnon's always up for major awards. And as we head into this series, to me, the two Conn Smythe favorites, if I had to rank them from each team, Colorado Avalanche, for me, it's simple. It's Cale Makar. He's been the best player on their team. He surpassed Nathan MacKinnon as the best player on the Colorado Avalanche. To me, it's not really even a close debate. Might be for some people. It isn't for me. He's been far head and shoulders above him and a better player. And the Tampa Bay Lightning, my Conn Smythe favorite heading into the Stanley Cup Final is Steven Stamkos. I think he's played a fantastic postseason. He's been ultra aggressive. He scored big goals. He's came up big in big moments. And also, you got to think about narrative. Steven Stamkos, after missing his season, playing 3 minutes in a cup final, last year kind of being an afterthought to Kucherov and Vasilevsky on road to their second Stanley Cup. He's been really good this postseason, and you can make an easy argument that Andrei Vasilevsky should win his second straight Conn Smythe if they win it. And he might, but they normally don't like to give out back-to-back Conn Smythe to the same person. Chicago Blackhawks had a different Conn Smythe winner every year they won a cup. LA had Justin Williams and they had Jonathan Quick. They didn't give it to the same guy other than Crosby because he got gifted the first one and then he earned the second one. So the league had to, the voters, the writers had to give one to Crosby because they felt bad for him for not winning it in 2009. But other than that, historically, you're not winning back-to-back Conn Smythe trophies recently. You just they give it to a different guy every time, especially on these winning teams. So I believe Stamkos has the inside track. Kucherov could have a big final. He hasn't won a Conn Smythe yet. He's obviously an all-time great player. He's a Hart Trophy winner. He's won a Ted Lindsay Award. So he'd have a good narrative as well, and that would really cement him as an all-time great player, Hall of Fame for sure. So we're going to talk about this series all week. We'll get into other storylines as we go. Might even talk tomorrow. There's this rumor about Matt Murray linked to the Toronto Maple Leafs, which I find completely fascinating. And boy, would that fit the Toronto Maple Leafs of wanting to sign another goalie who can't finish a season, because they love doing that. They love signing goalies that are Band-Aids. So that would be an interesting move for them. But there is a piece of goalie news today, and this should be should be great to hear for Oilers fans. Former Edmonton Oilers backup goaltender Mikko Koskinen has signed a 2-year deal with a team in Switzerland, meaning his time in the NHL is over. He played 4 years in North America with the Edmonton Oilers. Peter Chiarelli signed him to that 3-year, $15 million deal, or $13.5 million deal. And now, he clearly thought he couldn't have got a contract, or he didn't want to play in North America anymore. He's now going to Switzerland. He's 33. But with this signing, it guarantees the Edmonton Oilers that they will not have Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen between the pipes to start next season. So that's just good news that it's impossible for this team to have these two guys again between the pipes, for that to be the goalie tandem. because I didn't have any confidence that it wouldn't be these two guys until there was another goalie sign, or Koskinen did it here. He went over to Switzerland and took whatever they were offering. So he's gone, opens up a hole in Edmonton. And I did see on Saturday night during 32 Thoughts, Elliot Friedman was saying that Mike Smith's still undecided about playing next season, as is Duncan Keith. So actually, and this is how this works, Duncan Keith retiring would not hurt the Edmonton Oilers. What it would do is when a player retires and he's still under contract, there's a cap recapture penalty. So basically, it's a percentage of the money left gets hit on the organization that initially signed the player to the contract. So what would happen is $2.75 million would go to the Chicago Blackhawks against their cap. So if Duncan Keith retires, that's what Luongo did it. It hurt Florida, and that just kind of what happens. You get hit with a cap recapture. It's a stupid rule of the NHL, but it happens to teams. Shea Weber has not retired yet. If he was to retire and still have years left, it would kill the Nashville Predators. It would not be the Montreal Canadiens. So if you trade for a player, it's just who initially signed him to the contract. It's a weird loophole, but so that if Duncan Keith retires, it will hurt the Chicago Blackhawks' cap. And I think they're trying to get through a rebuild here again, try to break it down, because it was just a terrible season last year for them. But I think we'll start to see more and more stories, more and more things coming, because we're about a month away from the NHL free agency. I believe it's July 13th, so month today. NHL free agency will start, so that's on the horizon. We got all kinds of things happening. So can't wait to dive into all that and hear more and more rumors as we get closer to that date. But we got our Cup Final is set. It's Tampa, Colorado, Game 1 Wednesday night. We'll continue to talk about it throughout the week. Now let's pivot to the Canadian Open. I talked about when you're put in the spotlight and you have an opportunity to shine, you have to do it. And boy, did Toronto, Ontario, Canada do that this week. And I have to give props to a city that I've killed in the past for their fan base. And of course, these weren't all Leaf fans out there on Saturday night, or on this past week at St. George's in Toronto. But it could have been Leaf fans that couldn't afford to get into the building to watch the Leafs. These could have been, for lack of a better term, just blue-collar Leaf fans who went out to the Canadian Open, had about 12 beers, and started yelling and making a bunch of noise watching Justin Thomas, Tony Finau, and Rory McIlroy do their thing on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. But the course was great. You had some of the best players in the world, and you had a Sunday with a leaderboard packed with great players. You didn't just have a leaderboard packed with great players on a Sunday. You had Justin Rose, who nearly shot a 59. He bogeyed 18, so he finished with a 60. But an incredible day for Justin Rose. Corey Connors finished in 7th place, him shooting a 62 on a Sunday at St. George's. So a lot of guys shot low yesterday. A lot of guys had great rounds. But you had scenery, you had great players, you had Scheffler, you had Cam Smith. But the draw through it all, it was Rory, Finau, and Justin Thomas putting on a show on yesterday afternoon. It was a sight to behold, seeing Justin Thomas, who just a few weeks ago won the PGA Championship, Rory McIlroy, who's been on the side of the PGA Tour since this LIV tournament has come to be, and Tony Finau, who's starting to find his game again. And I normally hate 3-man pairings on a Sunday, but yesterday it worked. It depends entirely on all 3 guys playing well, which they were, and being in contention, which they were. It was a perfect scenario. And we had drama to the end. Rory McIlroy on 13 had a 3-shot lead. He let it slip away. His drivers missing the fairway. Justin Thomas making 9 birdies at one point in the day. He was on fire. And we get to 17 after Thomas birdied the par 3 16th. And we're all square. Finau's a stroke back. And Rory McIlroy hits a drive 367 yards. And this is what's happening in today's game. They get driver out when they can, but sometimes they don't have to. They just get a 9-iron and they'll hit it 300 yards. They scorch it. These guys can just mash the golf ball, but McIlroy drives it basically to the end of the green, almost to the green. And Thomas puts one tough tee shot in a really bad scenario where he has to punch out, and he bogeys that hole. Well, McIlroy has a great approach shot, puts it within about 2 feet of the hole. He birdies 17. Then we get to 18, and another great drive from McIlroy, right down the middle. Justin Thomas misses the fairway. He ends up bogeying the final hole. Finau makes a 12-foot putt for birdie, ends up getting outright second place. He went from $638,000 in prize money to $948,000. It was a $300,000 putt for Tony Finau, and a clutch one at that. But you got two of the best players in the world, Rory and Justin Thomas, doing battle in Canada. And what made the day even more compelling and even more interesting was Rory gets interviewed after the round, after winning his second straight Canadian Open 3 years apart, by Amanda Balionis Renner. And he says, this is something I won't forget for a long time. It's my 21st PGA Tour win, one more than somebody else. And he was referring to Greg Norman, who's the head of the LIV Golf Tour, the Saudis, the league opposing the PGA Tour. And this was just brilliant. And this is why Rory McIlroy is still, Tiger's an afterthought now. He's hurt. He's not in the limelight every day. Rory's the best quote, and he's the best person that you can have to promote your brand. He's a superstar guy. He's a great player, but he's also great. He's so good on the mic, and he just throws it back in Greg Norman's face. He throws it at guys like Dustin Johnson, because he won an event where everybody was watching, everybody cared, and he beat out the best players in the world to do it. All in all, I think this is a really good weekend for the PGA Tour. Now, the LIV Tour, if you didn't hear, because it'd be hard to, because you can only watch it on YouTube, and I don't think it's a great product, because they're doing it in teams, which I hate. The Ryder Cup is my least favorite weekend of the golf schedule. I hate anything in teams when it comes to an individual sport. If you play doubles tennis, don't play singles. Pick one. But singles, tennis, don't play doubles. Again, golf is an individual. It's not a team sport. I don't like it. I would never. If it was up to me, there would never be a Ryder Cup. But Charles Schwartzel, he won the event from South Africa. He wins $4.75 million. What a weekend for Charles. 100%. Great weekend. But nobody watched it. Some of these guys on the LIV Tour are fueled on attention. They're attention whores. And they need people to. There was a picture that I saw on Twitter of the two galleries, people watching. There was hardly anybody in London. I'm the only person in this room right now. That's basically who was watching them. Well, yesterday at St. George's, it was a packed gallery. It was a great crowd, a lively crowd. And you can't tell me that Rory, Justin Thomas, and Finau were fueled off the energy of the crowd. Now, but Dustin Johnson might not care, because I don't think he really cares about golf, quite frankly. He had one of the most ignorant comments I've ever heard when talking about going to the LIV Tour, saying, well, now I don't have to play golf the rest of my life. Really? So now you don't have to play golf for the rest of your life. So you've made over $100 million, but you don't have to play golf anymore now? You could retire today. You could burn half the money you got in your bank account and still be fine for generations. Your kids wouldn't have to work a day in their life. Oh, and by the way, your father-in-law is Wayne Gretzky. That's such an ignorant comment. Just say, I want the money. I'd have so much more respect for these guys if this. I want to make more money. It's about my family. Great. No problem. I'm not condemning the LIV Tour. It's good to have competition. I've read on Twitter pieces, and it's such an interesting time to be talking about sports, because I think politics is so intertwined, and I think people want to keep it out of it. I think that ship has sailed. I don't think it really should be an opposite thing. I think you mesh them together. I think it's super interesting, because you have Republicans, and I'm not necessarily a Republican, but I do think some Republican ideals are good. And I think there's this fine line where Republican, you never, your social issues are bad if you're a Republican, and guns and all. Anyway, it's a whole shoot match there. But Republicans are like, well, I support the Saudis, but I hate what their government does. They're like crazy Republicans like Tucker Carlson are even having to navigate these waters trying to talk about it. But they'd rather talk about the LIV Tour, because the January 6th, riots, the hearing is being, on ABC, on these other networks, not on Fox though, because why not? Because they probably think it was a good thing. But I find that so interesting, so compelling that that's happening. But yeah, it's an interesting time. That's for sure. What's going on right now? The LIV made some money, but it wasn't a good weekend for the LIV because nobody watched it. Nobody cared. People watched yesterday. The ratings are really good. It was a great tournament. And sure, the US Open the first couple days. I know Phil was meeting the media this afternoon. I didn't get to hear it yet because I worked and then came right here to the studio. And I'm sure he's going to be Phil. He's not going to be that candid. He wasn't last weekend. But he's going to be at the US Open. US Open is starting Thursday in Brookline, Mass. And, Phil will be there, DJ, a bunch of guys that were at the LIV event will be competing this week. But here's a prediction for you. By the start of the next golf season, all LIV golfers will be banned from playing in the majors. Unless you're a past champion, like Dustin Johnson. Phil's not a past champion at the US Open. I don't believe you're going to be able to play. I have nothing to base this on, but I believe the PGA Tour is working extremely hard to make this happen. Because even though Augusta's a single entity, and even though the US Open can do what they want, it's more important to have a good relationship right now with the PGA Tour than it is with the LIV Golf Tour. Because nobody can tell me that they'd rather have Dustin Johnson at an event than Justin Thomas, or Rory McIlroy, or Brooks Koepka, or you name it, or Billy Zaltz, Will Zalatoris. They'd rather have these PGA Tour players because, number one, they're better than these LIV guys, and they're more compelling. That's just a prediction. I might be wrong, but I think by the start of the next golf season, we have 2 majors left this season. That's all that really matters because the LIV guys won't play again. But come Augusta next year, come April 2023, I don't believe LIV golfers will be playing at major events. Because if it's the guys that are currently in the LIV event, DJ, you'll miss Phil, but you really won't because he's going to miss the cut anyway. Okay, he won the PGA last year. He's not winning another. He's missing the cut 9 out of 10 times. So just to put some thought behind this, he played in 15 PGA Tour events last year. He missed the cut 11 times. So he's not sticking around playing all weekend. So in the weekend, he's a non-factor. He's not even discussed. He's a non-entity. These guys made their decision, but the PGA Tour has more sponsors. They got the better players as of right now. DeChambeau, you might want him at a major. But you got Koepka. Rory can drive the ball as far as DeChambeau, and he can actually keep it on the fairway. He said he hit a driver 367 yesterday. Perfect play, and then he lips up to 2 feet. DeChambeau's not doing that. He'll shank a second shot. Plus, he can't stay healthy. He might not even be able to play the majors. He's supposedly playing at Brookline this week. We'll see, but he hasn't played in a very long time. Supposedly playing in Portland next month for the Live. But I want to see some interaction. I'd love if the U.S. Open was smart, and you want to talk about taking advantage of marketing, taking advantage of some of these, I'd put Rory in a group with a Live guy. Just see what happens. Is there any sort of animosity? Can you feel that there's uneasiness, a little tension? You want that in sport. Put Rory and DJ in the same group. I'd love it. Put those two guys together. There's got to be a third guy, whoever. Throw Shane Lowry with them. Whoever you want it to be. I'd love to see that. Because Rory's been so staunch against it. He said it's talking about the players taking the money and morality and things of that nature. Well, you got Mr. Morality standing there with you and Dustin Johnson. What would that be like? Let's try it out. The pairings aren't out yet. They usually come out Tuesday night. If the USGA has any balls, they'll do this. I want to see this happen. It makes it that more interesting to watch on a Thursday and a Friday. Even if you're at work, you say, I'm going to take a peek at the golf tournament and see what's happening. Something happened today? Anybody get into a little shouting match? Anybody give an extra fist pump after they make a birdie? And going into this weekend, I think guys like Rory, I think guys like Justin Thomas, these guys that have been staunchly against the Live Tour are going to be even more passionate, even more driven to win. Because they don't want to let a guy who turned against the PGA Tour win a major in the first opportunity he gets. Dustin Johnson winning would only validate his strategy. He goes to the Live Tour, barely has to play any golf, plays in some team event where he just chucks it around. They probably don't mark their balls. They set up flags anywhere. Patrick Reed's kicking the ball out of the rough. It's a joke. But he shows up at the majors, and he's still able to beat you while you're playing on the best tour in the world. So as much pressure as it was on the PGA Tour to have a great week last week in Canada, which they did, I think there's a lot of pressure on a PGA Tour player, which there's way more PGA Tour players than Live guys. There was only 48 guys that played in the Live last week, and not all those guys are playing in the U.S. Open this week. I believe the PGA Tour players, and in particular, the best players in the world need to show off this week their skills and take home the U.S. Open Championship. So I'm already looking forward to the tournament. The buildup is here. Hopefully there's some nastiness. Hopefully there's some uneasiness, and you see some friction between the two sides, between guys that are either on this side of the picket line or on the other side of the picket line, and the two have to mingle. Guys have been good about it, saying, DJ can do what he wants. I'm still going to be his friend. Justin Thomas said that. But also he said yesterday, I lost on the PGA Tour to the best players in the world. He was definitive about it. Because quite frankly, I don't think Rory McIlroy or Justin Thomas, in a candid moment, think Dustin Johnson is one of the best players in the world anymore. Dustin Johnson left the PGA Tour for money, but they likely also thought he left the PGA Tour because he couldn't win anymore. He couldn't beat them anymore. So he had to go play against Phil and Charles Schwartzel and whoever else is over playing at the Live. I could be off base, but I don't think I am. Brookline, Mass on Thursday. We'll preview that more later this week as we get closer to the date. NBA Finals, Game 5 tonight in San Francisco, California, where we have a 2-2 series after a great game Friday night where Stephen Curry, had one of the best games of his career, dropping 43 and 10, a major double-double to tie the series at 2 when at many points during the game, it looked like Boston had complete control. They're going to take a 3-1 series lead back and have a stranglehold on this series. Yet, Steph Curry just was not going to be stopped on Friday night. He hit 3 after 3. They tried to throw bodies at him. He'd make good passes. He just was at his all-time best. He got some help from Clay. Andrew Wiggins was big in the game on Friday night. But Steph Curry was Steph Curry. There's just times where special players are too good for you to overcome, and that was what happened Friday night. He had range, he had confidence, and he would not be slowed down. And you have to give him kudos for that. Because Boston is also one of the best defensive teams they were the best defensive team in basketball. They've been extremely good defensively in the playoffs. And there's just times where Steph Curry said, I don't care who's guarding me. If you got length, I'm small, you're big, whatever. I'm going to get my shot off and I'm going to make it. And that's really a big part of the game on Friday was Steph Curry just worked off screens, gotten good looks, and he made the shots that he had to make. And, it was a twist of fate because I thought Boston was going to take that game. They'd be up 3-1. Golden State would win tonight in Game 5, and Boston would close out the series at Game 6 at home and be like the Celtics of 2008 where they won the title on their home floor. Now, they still have the opportunity to win the title on their home floor. They need to win a road game tonight. And, Curry's been great. And the thing with the Boston Celtics is they like to make life difficult on themselves. They had to go 7 with Milwaukee, where it was a battle the whole time. They lost Game 5 at home where they threw the game away. Marcus Smart was just turning the ball over. And Giannis and Drew Holiday just found a way to win that game, and it goes 7. They had to win a Game 6 on the road, then battle to win a Game 7. Against Miami, you have a 3-2 series lead. Miami's dead to rights. They win a Game 6. It goes down to the wire after Marcus Smart just started firing up shots in Game 7, and it's a one possession game with 20 seconds to play. So the Celtics have played a ton of playoff games. They swept the first round. 22 playoff games already for this Celtics team. And they never want to make it easy. And part of the reason why they make life so difficult in themselves is they're not consistent. Jason Tatum's it's hard to define his series because he hasn't been awful, but at the same time, he has never been great, in my opinion. I've never seen great cusp of being a superstar Jason Tatum in this series. He's never been that good. He's been present. He's been good at assisting the basketball. But when you ask him to make a tough shot, when you ask him to make a play in the clutch moment, he normally comes up short in this series. And yes, you have Steph Curry on the other side of the court, and Steph Curry will always be regarded as a better player. He's likely to go down as one of the top 10 players to ever play the game. But even Jaylen Brown has been more impactful on a game-by-game basis than Jason Tatum. And you could argue Marcus Smart has been better in this series than Jason Tatum. He's struggling to shoot the basketball. He's turning the ball over. And I look at tonight, Game 5. I still believe Boston has the better team. Clay's playing well for a guy that's injured, coming off 2 major surgeries. Wiggins has been, and we'll get to Wiggins in a second, has been so critical. But Boston, with Tatum, then Brown, Smart, Robert Williams, they have a number of players that are more important before we get to the next Warrior after Steph Curry. And Game 5 is the Jason Tatum game. There was the flu game for Michael. It was Steph's game in game 4 following the rolled ankle, which I don't think it was that injured. But nevertheless, that's the narrative. It's a better story than just Steph Curry is a great game 4. So now Tatum is – this is going to go two ways, one of two ways for Tatum. He's going to be an NBA champion and be labeled a superstar. He'll earn that right as a superstar by winning a championship. Or he's going to lose his first NBA Finals and he'll be knocked down to just being, oh, he's a good player. And he's better than just saying, well, he's a good player. Or in Tommy Boy, well, he's a nice guy, as David Spade would say. But Tatum has to win in order to be a superstar. And it's all or nothing. Because he hasn't played great yet. He's been good in spurts, but Jaylen Brown's been better than him throughout this series. I think Robert Williams has been at his peak, has been better than Jason Tatum has been in this series. And you're the best player on a hopefully championship team. This is not asking too much. Your teammates have been good. You have a better team as a whole than the Golden State Warriors. Because Iguodala can't play. Moody's too young to play. Kuminga, Bielitsa is playing tough when he's out there. But you got Derek White, you got Peyton Pritchard, you got Grant Williams, Robert Williams, all these. You have a great team around you, and you still are coming up small. You have more people to rely on than Steph Curry has in Golden State for damn sure, and you're still coming up small. So being comfortable in your shot is something that Tatum needs to be. He needs to be decisive. And when he goes up with that stroke, be confident that it's going to go down. I haven't seen him be confident yet. We'll see if he can do it tonight, but that's the biggest thing for them. And, can Grant Williams, can Derek White give you production? They need to continue to do that because I expect Jaylen Brown to have a good first half. He normally does. But can the bench players give you something in the second half on the road? Because I don't know if Tatum's going to be able to. But he needs to show up. And it doesn't matter if Andrew Wiggins is guarding him. Andrew Wiggins is a great defender. He's become a great defender after leaving Minnesota, where he's kind of embraced it. He's embraced being a great rebounder and just being a really good team basketball player. He was known as an individualist before, and it nearly knocked him out of the league. But since coming to Golden State, he's embraced that, and he's such a key cog in the machine where I think in this series, and you could argue throughout the playoffs, Andrew Wiggins has been the second most important Warrior. Friday night, he grabbed 16 rebounds. He was just a beast. Every time they'd go help, and Robert Williams would run the pick and roll, Wiggins could go grab the rebounds. He fought guys for them. He worked his ass off, and he scored points with it. He's playing tough on both ends, and like I said, to me, he's the second most important Warrior. He's more important than Clay, and he's certainly more important than Draymond right now because Draymond was benched for over 5 minutes of the fourth quarter in Game 4, where he was just an offensive liability. He's not going to shoot the ball. He has no confidence in his shot. And Steve Kerr said, no, we're going with a different lineup. We feel we can exploit this team doing this. Bielitsa got some extra minutes. And he did eventually come back in. He made some good plays down the stretch. But Steve Kerr had some good reads. He said, our team has a better chance of winning with Draymond on the bench. And that could have lost Draymond forever if they lost the game. But it's easier to accept for Draymond, a guy with an ego the size of the Bay Area, to say, we won the game even with me on the bench, so it's okay. But now it's Game 5. This is it. So I had Celtics in 6. I thought it would go a different way, but the Celtics win tonight. They will wrap it up at home on Thursday. Now, if Golden State wins tonight, it gets extremely interesting because they have an opportunity to win the championship in Boston. But we just saw Steph Curry go off for 43. I'm not so sure he's going to do it again. That he's going to have another massive game because I think he's going to need to advance because Clay's had 2 pretty decent games in a row. I don't know what he's going to have left in the tank. Their bench are not exactly great scorers. So I like the Celtics on FanDuel right now. The Boston Celtics are +4, meaning they're a 4-point underdog. I like that. I like the Celtics tonight, and I'm feeling a little dangerous because I had Rory McIlroy winning the Canadian Open yesterday. He obviously did. So you got some free change, lying around. You feel a little frisky. You feel a little horny to make a bet. I like the Celtics +4. Not only that, I like the Celtics money line tonight on the road. I'm putting my faith in Jason Tatum. On a separate bet I made after the first round, as I talked on the podcast last week, I have the Celtics winning the title. So I'm not backing off that stance. And I just believe they have more options, more bodies to score points than Golden State does. Because if you can limit Steph Curry, then you're going to win the game if you're the Celtics, because you just have more guys that can get you a bucket. Klay Thompson is not getting a bucket unless he's standing, as he catches the ball off a screen and he shoots a 3. He cannot create on the dribble. He never has been. That's never been his strength. Draymond's not scoring anywhere. Kevon Looney can be a scorer at the rim, but he's mostly creating more opportunities. He's grabbing offensive rebounds. He's being a difference maker there. Wiggins can knock down shots and also be a factor around the rim and also grabbing offensive rebounds for more possessions to likely give the ball to Steph Curry. So if the Celtics can rebound tonight, Time Lord had 12 rebounds in game 4, but he had 10 of them in the first half. Be more consistent. We'll see what he had, a number of days off to be ready and healed up for tonight. We'll see what he's got. But if they can rebound and defend, and I'd sell out for Steph. Because you think about the lineup. If you double Steph, that means Draymond will be open with the lineups they started the other night. Otto Porter Jr. will be open. He is a good 3-point shooter, but he hasn't been hot in this series. Klay Thompson will be up. That's a danger, but keep a guy on Klay. But if you double and Otto Porter is the guy wide open, or even Draymond's the guy wide open, you can live with that. Because Draymond has no confidence in his shot right now, and you'll take Draymond shooting an open 3 is a net positive for your team. Having Steph Curry fire even 25 3-pointers to the rest of the team shooting 25 themselves is a net negative, because Curry is just way more dangerous and has the potential to get hot and ruin your life. But it's been a good series so far. The number of days between games is taxing. Because you think of this weekend, you went Friday till Monday without a game, and you kind of forget about the series. You kind of forget it's happening. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, there's an NBA Finals game tonight. With the NHL, they play Wednesday and then they play Saturday. So it's going to be the same kind of scenario. And it's the only time in the series there's that big of a break between games, even with travel. But these NBA Finals stretch out. The season is either done Thursday or Sunday. It's either done Thursday or on Father's Day, where there could be a Game 7. Tonight's the pivotal game. Boston wins tonight. It's over at home on Thursday. I truly believe that, and I believe Boston's going to win tonight. That's why I'm taking Boston +4, and I'll take them on the money line, because I just have confidence that even if Steph Curry is a big game, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum will do enough to get this team to a victory. They lost Game 5 against Milwaukee. That's true. But they did win Game 5 against the Heat. A game on the road, a huge game, and they won it. They did it in the conference final. I believe they will do it again tonight in the NBA Finals. But this is Tatum's game. This should be a 35 to 40-point game for him. It has to be. Make tonight your game. When people look back at this series and say, what was the turning point? Or who were the best players? The Finals MVP is very much up for grabs. For Golden State, it's a lock. It's Steph Curry. I've even heard talk that even if the Warriors lose, he could potentially get the Finals MVP. The reason they're saying that is because there's no clear-cut person in Boston. Is Jaylen Brown the favorite right now? Tatum certainly shouldn't be. I threw $5 on Robert Williams, the center, to win Finals MVP, just for fun, to see what would happen there last week. So there's no clear-cut guy. Who will step up in these big moments and take the throne, so to speak, and take that position? We will wait and see. Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball. Where are we in Major League? We're mid-June. A lot of teams are great. Mets, Dodgers, despite getting swept by the Giants in a 3-game series this weekend. Padres look like a good team. The Yankees are red hot. Blue Jays are playing good baseball. But there's also teams on June 13th where you look at them in the standings and you're like, what the hell? How did we get here? And the team that just slaps you in the face the most, for me anyway, is the Chicago White Sox. A team that has great starting pitching. Dylan Cease, Michael Kopech. Great hitters, Jose Abreu, former MVP, Tim Anderson. A great bullpen with Liam Hendricks, who's been terrible this year, Brett Cecil. And yet, as we currently sit here today, the Chicago White Sox are 5 games back of first place in the AL Central. Meaning they're trailing the Minnesota Twins. They are trailing the Cleveland Guardians in their own division. And this team is in complete shambles. Their bullpen is giving up runs. Their hitters are going ice cold. Abreu hasn't found his game yet. And now the fans are starting to cheer yesterday in their loss to the Texas Rangers that Tony La Russa, the 77-year-old manager, who is well known for being out there, being a hothead, definitely being an old school guy, not up to the analytics standards, if you will, maybe not listening to his general manager. They're asking for him to be fired because this team had huge expectations this year to compete for a World Series, to at least make the playoffs, and I couldn't agree more. I thought the Chicago White Sox team was going to be a really great team. I didn't see the Yankees being this good. And the Yankees are a great team despite Garrett Cole, who hasn't been that great this year. He got blown up on Wednesday night, 3 straight homers to start the game. But Aaron Judge has been on fire. DJ LeMahieu has found his game. Their bullpen is strong, and every pitcher outside of Garrett Cole has been fantastic. I expected the Mets to be good, but I expected the Braves to at least compete. But I look at the White Sox and where they currently stand, and it's so perplexing. And they had a great season last year, but they tailed off in September. September was their worst month of the season, and that negative attitude kind of brought itself to the postseason where they didn't have any life, they didn't win any games, and it was over before you knew it. And now I sit here after we saw Joe Girardi, an old school manager, get fired. We saw an old school manager in Joe Madden get fired, and I thought about Don Mattingly in Miami after they had a players-only meeting, and it apparently did not go well. They did win their next series, but they swept the Nationals, so that doesn't really count. But now I sit here thinking, well, what happens with Tony La Russa? He's older than Madden. He's older than Joe Girardi. He's 77 years old. And Jerry Reinsdorf, who is the owner of the Bulls, you see him in the Last Dance documentary. He owns the White Sox as well. And he's got to be sitting there saying, I love Tony La Russa, but our team stinks. Our team is underperforming. I'm spending a lot of money to get nowhere. I fired Rick Renneria, who made the postseason. We haven't done anything since I fired him. It hasn't been a good move for me to bring in a former manager, a buddy of mine, when my team was competitive, and we haven't got anywhere. And now, to me, the big decision is the White Sox prepare to play the Detroit Tigers, who have been another disappointing team in my eyes because I believe they'd be better than what they are. The thought is for Jerry Reinsdorf is, do I fire my friend? Russa's already in the Hall of Fame. He's a great manager. He's a competitor. Still, in relative good shape. He's always standing up throughout the games. He's always engaged. But at the same time, this sport is not about friendship. It's not about legacy. It's about, are you winning? Joe Madden was fired in Chicago. He won a World Series there. He ended a 108-year drought. They let him go after what he accomplished. Any team can let a guy go. La Russa hasn't done anything. And to me, you're getting right on the wire of if you do something just to see if you can reset your team, just to see if you can get hot, see if you can make the postseason. The Braves made moves last year to get hot, to get into the postseason that ultimately paid off. Eddie Rosario, Adam Duvall, Jorge Soler, they were important additions to that team. Well, the White Sox aren't likely going to make a big trade right now because there's no scuttlebutt. There isn't any talk about a trade. But what you can do is fire your manager. Get somebody new in there. Get the players excited to go to the ballpark and not worry about crabby old Tony La Russa sitting there with, when they arrive. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if that's coming on the horizon because the White Sox, this series could be the make or break because it's White Sox, Tigers tonight in a 3-game set. As we currently sit, the wild card position. Chicago White Sox are 3.5 game out of a wild card spot, but they'd have to pass the Angels, Texas, and Cleveland to get to that third spot. A lot of teams to jump over. There's a lot of season left. I realize that. But in their division, they are 6 games back of Minnesota, 3 games back of Cleveland for second in that division. They're too good of a team to be this bad. And you look at that lineup, and I look at it, and I'm like, this team's great. Why aren't they better? Why isn't this team competing day in, day out? Luis Robert, Jake Burgers had a good year. Andrew Vaughn, Hendricks. They got a lot of guys on injured reserve. Joe Kelly's there. Eloy Jimenez is a really important player. Lance Lynn is supposed to start tonight. He is coming off a torn meniscus. He was nominated for the Cy Young last year. He's going to make his season debut. So he should pitch. He's supposed to pitch tonight. They're missing guys. But even with injuries, you can't be this bad. And there's a difference, for a team like Toronto is tied with Tampa for second, or you could say third in the American League East. They are 11 games over 500. Chicago is 4 games under 500. And Toronto plays in a much tougher division. They got to play the Rays. They got to play the Yankees. They even got to play Boston, who are 3 games over 500. Because as we currently stand, the American League wild card, it is Toronto, Tampa, Boston, and New York's leading the division. So all 4 of those teams would make the playoffs if the season ended today, if you can believe it. But Chicago's been a big disappointment. Detroit's been a disappointment for me, just how terrible they've been. They're 11 games under 500. They're brutal. The Angels, of course, 4 games under 500 now. Lost 2 or 3 against the Mets over the weekend. Things are not getting much better, and they have to soon for these Angels as the Mets just continue to win. Pete Alonso's on fire. They went through a tough Western road trip, a long trip, and they had a great one. So kudos to the Mets who just continue to pitch extremely well. And you look at a guy like Carlos Carrasco, who had Tommy John, who had serious injuries. But the guy just keeps winning. He's 8-1 on the season now. He's got the most wins in Major League Baseball among starting pitchers. And he's been great. Taijuan Walker's, he's another pitcher for them that's been extremely good. So kudos to them. Atlanta is 5.5 back of the Mets. And that's a bit of a disappointment for me because I think Atlanta's better than that. They just are. But as we look at it right now, Atlanta is in the final wild card spot in the National League, only a half game up on Milwaukee and a game back of San Francisco. So they're right in the mix, though, for Atlanta to at least make the playoffs. Where, as I look, throughout, Arizona's had a pretty good season to be only 5.5 games under 500, while you got Cincinnati, Washington, Chicago, terrible. The Marlins are 4 games under 500. I didn't expect much of them. I expected more of the teams in the American League East. Texas is starting to find it. They're 3 games back of a wild card spot. Maybe they can catch fire despite Marcus Semien being terrible. The Mariners are a team I expected more of, but they've been brutal as well. They're fading. Robbie Ray's having a terrible season coming off his Cy Young. So, baseball is interesting. It's about a month away from the All-Star break. And guys are having great seasons. Aaron Judge is, to me, the MVP frontrunner right now. Still a long ways to go. There's a lot to be decided there. But, Aaron Judge has been great. San Francisco is starting to, like I said, swept the Dodgers over the weekend. That's a big series. You make up 3 games on your opponent, and that's a big development for them. But what teams are doing are just separating themselves. The Yankees continue to win. They're getting their bullpen healthy. Clay Holmes. I'm interested in what the Yankees do, because Clay Holmes is pitching himself into being the closer of this team. And Aroldis Chapman has always been a closer since he entered baseball. Since he came into the league, he's been a closer on Cincinnati, on Chicago, and they won the World Series, and on the Yankees. Will he accept the role of being a middle reliever? It's easy to say yes, and maybe he won't want the pressure of being a closer, but that's always been his position. And if I'm the Yankees, it's simple. You are a middle reliever, because Clay Holmes has been unbelievable this year. You're not taking that spot. And Chad Green is likely pitching the 8th when he's healthy. Or Zach Britton for that matter. He might, if you're going into the playoffs and you're healthy, if I'm the Yankees and nothing goes completely haywire, I'd have Zach Britton pitch the 7th. I'd have Chad Green pitch the 8th. And then you have Clay Holmes, your closer, pitch the 9th to close out a game. So that would mean that Aroldis Chapman fits in somewhere in the 6th inning, or you got to hope that your starter could at least go 5. I know it's rare now, especially in the postseason with starting pitchers, but that means in a playoff game, Aroldis Chapman is pitching in the 6th inning, and he gives you 1 inning, and then he's done for the day. I don't know if that's going to be an easy sell. He's going to have to take it, but does he end the season on the New York Yankees roster? I'm not sure they're going to want him, or if they need him. A team might say, we could use him as a closer. Take a look at him and say, you know what, the Yankees, although a great team, and then the question becomes, do you trade a guy that you know is a good asset? Do you trade a guy that was a great closer, hasn't been lately, but would you trade him to a contender? That's an interesting development to watch over the next little while, is how they handle Aroldis Chapman, whether it's with kid gloves or not. Looking at contending teams, the Blue Jays have Romano. I can't see them trading him within division either, so I'm going to rule out that division. American League, Minnesota could use him, but Minnesota I still think has to play a lot of baseball, because although they're in first place, I don't trust that team. They have something about it I don't like. Houston. I think Houston would kick tires on Aroldis Chapman, but would the Yankees trade him to their rival, the Houston Astros? I don't know. Those two franchises hate each other. For the right price, they might. But the National League could make sense. Atlanta, for instance, if they can make the postseason, have a good stretch. Kenley Jansen is their closer right now. He's not a guy I trust health-wise. He's not a guy I trust in high-leverage moments. That could be a fit there. St. Louis, very much. They got a half-game lead there. St. Louis could use Aroldis Chapman. He could go back to the NL Central. The Dodgers are always looking for help when it comes to their bullpen. San Diego, even San Francisco. So the Chapman Yankees angle is something to watch over the second half of the season, post All-Star break, and before we get to the trade deadline, because he's got a big ego. The Yankees are not going to back off their stance, and I can't see him accepting a middle reliever role on this team. He'll want to be the closer, and to me, Clay Holmes is earning it night in, night out, and he should be given the role if he continues to pitch the way he is. So there's just a little storyline to follow as we get deeper into the season. Tonight, CHL. We obviously got the NBA Finals tonight, but 2 teams are booked to the Memorial Cup right now. That is the Shawinigan Cataracts, who defeated the Charlottetown Islanders 3-2 in their series. 3-1 in their series Saturday, coming back from 3-1 down, beating Charlottetown in overtime. They were a huge underdog. They were a road team in every series they competed in, but the Cinderella run to the Memorial Cup led in particular by Maverick Bork, who's a first-round pick of the Dallas Stars. He'll be a great player to watch at the Memorial Cup. He's been fantastic in these playoffs. Xavier Bourgoux has been great. Kalam in net. Those three guys have been, and Pierre Dubé got the eventual game winner. So Shawinigan is there. Host St. John, of course. They haven't played in almost a month and a half. And then we have 2 series left. We have the OHL and the WHL. So game 6 tonight in Windsor. It's Hamilton versus Windsor. Hamilton has a 3-2 series lead. They won yesterday 3-2 on Mason McTavish's game-winning goal. The series has been very close. I expect to see a competitive game from Windsor tonight. And honestly, I think Hamilton's going to win the series, but I see Windsor winning tonight at home. It's going to go to 7 on Wednesday night. But that should be a fun game. Every game's been good so far. And we got Seattle playing the Edmonton Oil Kings. Edmonton had a chance to close out Seattle on Saturday, but Seattle fought back, and they have forced game 6 tonight. So, I mentioned Mason McTavish. Wyatt Johnson's a first-round pick, and he's a great player. Will Cooley, another guy for the Oil Kings. There's Caden Gooley on the back end, Jake Neighbors, Dylan Gunther. So there's lots of talent that's going to be at the Memorial Cup. Lots of guys taken to in the top end of the draft, and just guys you're going to see at the NHL level in the not too distant future, in my opinion. So I think it's been really good, these games, and we got those games tonight. We got some Major League Baseball, and we got the NBA Finals at 10 o'clock. Of course, it's a 10 o'clock tip because why not? It couldn't make it earlier. It could be 9 here, 8 o'clock prime time. That would just be too easy. That wouldn't be nice to our West Coast viewers. I get it. But 10 o'clock tip's a tough sell on a Monday night, but I'm going to suck it up and watch Game 5 tonight. We'll be back to recap it tomorrow. Seamus will join me as always on a Tuesday. We'll talk about the NBA Finals. We'll start to preview the Stanley Cup Final as well and get into some other storylines in the National Hockey League that I'm just kind of interested in. The goalie carousel. Where does every goalie end up? What's the biggest job for each GM this offseason in Canada? We might do that tomorrow. That might be might do that tomorrow's pick. For each GM, every Canadian GM, what's the biggest job you have? What's the number one thing you have to do this offseason to say that you did your job effectively and you're putting your team, however you look at how it's going, whether it's a rebuilding team, whether it's a team that is looking to compete for a title right away, what does that GM have to accomplish this upcoming offseason? So we're going to talk about that tomorrow, and we'll talk about a lot of different things as well. So hope you guys all enjoyed the show today. It was great to be back. Loved chatting with you all. Lots of interesting stuff. U.S. Open this week. Stanley Cup Final starts. NBA Finals. Baseball. Maybe there's a firing. There's always news, right? So we'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy the games. This is To The Point.